Discover the sinister secrets, 12 haunting tales of cursed forests revealed from the dark web. Moans echoed through the desolation, shadows writhed between the thick-barked trees, and the woods whispered secrets in a language almost forgotten. Dark stories spun like a web, recounting brave souls who vanished without a trace, swallowed whole by the very air of cursed forests. They said Maplewood had one, lurking just beyond the chipper facade of the town, a woodland that bore witness to unease. The locals wore smiles, but their eyes danced with unspoken words, a history veiled in the smiles of neighbors who knew too much but said too little. In the dark of the night, as Emily nursed their newborn, her heart pounding in sync with her baby's soft whimpers, Jake burst into the room, breathless and wide-eyed. "You won't believe this," he cried, waving his laptop like a flag of fascination. "I found a thread on the dark web about cursed forests. Maplewood is one of them." He leaned closer, excitement bubbling, oblivious to the unsettling chill that crept along Emily's spine. She glanced through the window, the moonlight cast a skeletal glow on the looming woods. Shadows twisted behind the trees, flickering as if they moved with intention. A cold wave washed over her, but she shook it off, fatigue playing tricks on her weary mind. Days slid by with Emily drowning in sporadic sleep and the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. Each late-night vigil unveiled figures flitting near the trees, flickers of movement that melted away as she tried to focus. She yearned to share her worries with Jake, but he was too engrossed in his obsession, captivated by tales of neighbors who disappeared after daring to tread too far into the dark embrace of the woods. "Remember the barbecue at the Johnsons'?" one mom whispered at the playgroup, laughter cutting through her words. Bob suggested a hike in the woods and then poof. No one saw him again. The others nodded, but their eyes soured. It was the same each time. They laughed, but a tremor ran through the group at the mention of the trees. A charm existed in Maplewood, one that felt precarious, almost threatening. Emily felt the weight of isolation pressing down as Jake made plans to investigate the very spine of the town's mystery. It slated dread deep inside her. He was pulling the thread of their safety, unaware of what lay at the other end. "Don't go, please," she begged, her fingers gripping his sleeve, eyes wide with fear. "What if you end up like them?" "There's nothing to fear," he reassured, but doubt seeped into the edges of her mind. She paced, teeth biting her lip, as he donned his jacket, determination etched on his brow. He was drawn to the forest, like a moth to the flame, and she felt as if it would consume him wholly. Hours dragged on after he left, her heart racing, anxiety spiraling into the corners of her thoughts. Suddenly, her phone pinged, and a notification illuminated the screen. "Welcome to Maplewood." The unsettling memory of missing posters invaded her mind as A chilling shiver snaked through her. She opened the email revealing a forgotten myth tied to the woods, cracked into whispers. "The trees are hungry, so are your neighbors." Emily stumbled to the window, peering into the inky blackness beyond the flickering porch light. The shadows stirred, multiplying, shifting ominously. It wasn't just the forest beckoning. As she stood there, a heavy silence pressed in around her, tight in its embrace. Then the door flung open. It wasn't Jake who returned. "Emily?" A voice shattered the night. But her heart squeezed with dread. What awaited her on the other side? The web of terror was tightening, and she realized with a cold horror escaping the woods was only part of the battle. The trees weren't the only threat. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. The voice wasn't Jake's. It was deeper, rasped with a sinister edge that clawed at her nerves. "Emily?" Again, that chilling call echoed, cutting through the silence of the night. She stood frozen, torn between a primal urge to flee and the instinct to stand her ground, protect her baby. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice trembling. The darkness outside swallowed her words, and for a brief moment, she felt utterly alone, the weight of the unknown pressing against her. The silhouette stepped closer, the door creaking ominously on its hinges. The features emerged in the flickering light, a face she didn't recognize, marked by shadows, eyes glinting like coins dropped into a wishing well. "There was something deeply wrong. I came to warn you." The voice was low, almost soothing, but fear wrapped around her throat like a tightening noose. "Warn me about what?" she whispered, clutching the baby to her chest instinctively, tightening her grip as though her newborn could somehow shield her from the encroaching darkness. The stranger's smile cracked, a blend of pity and something else, a satisfaction that made her skin crawl. It's not safe, they're coming for him. You know what the trees want, don't you? They want more than the lost souls, the whispers, they want to reclaim what's theirs. Emily's breath caught. Her mind raced back to Jake's excitement about the cursed forest, his determination seeping into her veins like poison. She thought about the abrupt, unsettling stories, the missing posters. Had he strayed too close? Where's Jake? She blurted out, finding the words desperate and loud in the thick quiet of the house. He's lost. Deeper than you think. The stranger stepped into the dim light, revealing dirt-streaked clothes that made him resemble a hermit unraveling from some ancient nightmare. You must leave now. Before the night consumes him. And you, his eyes fell to her baby, and a flicker of something darker shone in his gaze. They hunger. Her instincts screamed to slam the door and lock it tight. But a nagging thought curled in her mind. If Jake was drawing near the depths of the forest, if he were in danger, she couldn't leave him behind. How do I find him? She demanded, her tone sharper than she felt. The man shook his head, eyes clouding with regret. You don't understand. The forest isn't just a place. It's a trap. Once you enter, it takes you, changes you. The stories are real, the legends actual. You'll walk, searching for him, but it will only lead you deeper into its grip. Weary dread sank into her bones. She couldn't stand there much longer. Tell me where to go, her voice broke. Please. It's not about directions, he said with a strange urgency, it's about what you're willing to sacrifice to bring him back. You'll face shadows in the form of neighbors, family. They may look like him, sound like him, but they're not. The air grew heavy, dense with an unshakable tension. Every second stretched like the silence before a storm. As if summoned by her anxiety, a low rustle outside seeped through the walls. The shadows in her peripheral vision flickered, growing bold, inching closer to the safety of her home. Emily! The voice called again. This time it was faint, desperate, a sound that made her blood run cold. She turned to the door, torn between the urge to step outside and confront the forest, or to retreat inside, shield her child from this madness. What do I do? She gasped, voice barely audible. The stranger's expression darkened, and with one last look, he whispered ominously, you follow the sounds. But remember, it's a game they play, and only one can win. Before she could respond, he vanished back into the night, leaving Emily in a cold shiver, heart pounding, a dreadful decision coiling around her thoughts. She had to go. The forest called, deeper than her fear, digging its roots into her very soul. Taking a deep breath, she glanced back at the darkness, then back to the baby, and whispered, I'll find him. The front door creaked as she opened it wider, the unsettling night. Promising secrets untold. What awaited her beyond was a dance with shadows and the truth rooted in cold, hungry trees. With one step into the night, she felt eyes watching from the woods, but she didn't turn back. The hunt had begun. What price would she pay for the man she loved? The forest loomed like a living creature, shadows thickening, swallowing the light. Emily's breath quickened as she stepped onto the damp earth, the cool air wrapping around her like a shroud. Every pulse of her heart matched the rhythmic crunch of twigs beneath her feet. She clutched her child closer, her resolve mixed with dread. Just a bit further, she murmured to herself, barely aware of the whispered comfort she was trying to convey. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, as if beckoning her deeper into their dark embrace. Emily! The voice echoed again, a desperate plea layered with agony. Was it Jake? Her mind twisted in knots, uncertainty bubbling like poison in her veins. The last thing she wanted was to get lost in this cursed haze, following a phantom that could lead her to ruin. Yet, her legs moved forward, compelled by the familiar call, drawn like a moth to a flickering flame. Suddenly, a gust swept through the trees, rustling leaves that whispered secrets too faint to understand. Stay focused, she reminded herself, but each step felt heavier as the shadows twisted around her. The path before her seemed to slither and shift, as if the forest itself had a will, eager to mislead her. Jake! She shouted, voice piercing the silence. I'm coming. The world around her seemed to hold its breath. For a second, all was still, then a laugh, chilling and hollow, echoed back at her, bouncing off the trees like a cruel taunt. It clawed at her insides, choking her spirit. The hairs on her neck stood on end, a chill racing down her spine. This laughter wasn't his, it was wrong, twisted. Flashes of familiar faces darted between the trees, ghostly images of neighbors, friends, all grinning with that uncanny familiarity that struck her like a punch to the gut. Behind those smiles lurked shadows of malice. Could it be? Could the man warning her be right? She shook her head, forcing her focus to remain sharp. Jake! She screamed again, her voice tearing through the suffocating quiet, desperate for a reply. The laughter dissipated, replaced by a soft rustling like whispers building towards a crescendo. The air thickened as heavy clouds rolled in, blocking the moonlight and transforming the forest into a drenching darkness. Every inch of Emily's body screamed to turn back. But a soft cry pierced through the night, a sound so sweet yet so forlorn, latching onto her heart. It was unmistakably her baby. A horrid dread lanced through her. Stay quiet, please, she implored, feeling her throat tighten. Suddenly, the path ahead split into two, both cloaked in shadow. Whispers drifted into her mind, promising safety with each turn. Instincts battled within her, she couldn't trust the forest, but turning back meant losing Jake forever. I can't, she breathed, confusion choking her. What do I sacrifice? The shadow shifted further, revealing shapes that danced at the edge of vision. They looked like Jake, but something was off. The contours of his face shifted like quicksand, uncertain and wrong. Ghostly figures closed in, and she stepped backward, heart racing. And then the earth beneath her feet trembled, a low growl reverberating from the depths of the trees. The ground seemed to shift as something stirred, a creature awakened by her trespass. Emily? The voice came closer, but it spiraled into a growl, layering into a chorus of lost souls, drawn by her voice. They surrounded her face as she recognized, contorted into masks of rage and despair. The air became electric, each heartbeat an echo in the suffocating void. As adrenaline surged, she felt the weight of her baby growing heavier, the darkness wrapping tighter around her. Panicking, she stammered, "Help me," but the forest merely watched. It hungered. Before she could move, the ground split open, a gaping mouth of shadow and fear yawning before her. She hesitated on the brink, straining for a glimpse beyond the edge of the darkness. Just as she readied herself to leap back, a form surged from the depths, familiar yet altered. It was Jake. But the thing that emerged didn't fully resemble the man she loved. Shadows clung to him like a shroud, eyes vacant and hollow. "Come to me," Emily had beckoned, voice laced with something ancient and twisted. Every instinct screamed to run. But her heart pulled her in, caught in the web of the forest's sinister charm. Torn between hope and horror, she lingered on the precipice, breathless and uncertain. What sacrifice would she make next? As the whispering darkness surged closer, the chilling truth resonated: she might have to gamble her very soul to save him. Emily's heart raced like a drum, reverberating in her ears. The creature that resembled Jake stepped closer, shadows swirling around him, obscuring any trace of warmth or humanity. The forest held its breath, every rustling leaf and creaking branch amplifying the tension, as if the very world anticipated her choice. "Emily, please," he coaxed, his voice slithering through the air like smoke. It wrapped around her, igniting a flicker of hope, but it also splintered her resolve. She squinted into the void that was his face, searching for any spark of the man she loved. "I'm trapped. You need to help me." A scream clawed its way up her throat. Was this really Jake? Or an echo, a mirage conjured by her desperation? Fear mingled with longing, intoxicating and paralyzing. "Turn back." The voice of the old man from town surged in her mind, warnings of the cursed forest wrapping around her like a thorny vine. The trees shifted, swaying and groaning as if they were alive, watching her every move. She retreated, keeping her baby clutched tightly under her arm, heart pounding so swiftly she feared it might burst. "Help me," the figure pleaded again, and she flinched at the desperation laced through the words. It tapped on the deepest wound in her heart. The pull of maternal instinct warred with a rising tide of instinctual horror. "Step forward. I can save you." Shadows flickered across what was Jake's face, distorting the features until they twisted into something monstrous, slick with deceit. In this moment, the forest appeared to pulse, alive with a sinister energy, with roots that stirred and creaked like ancient bones. Something awakened, something that had lain dormant in the darkness. Clenching her jaw, she took a step back, her instincts roaring. "Are you really him?" Her voice broke under the weight of her question. The shadows flickered, and for a heartbeat, she saw a glimmer behind the depths, the man she knew. Then, just like that, it vanished. "Trust me. You need to choose." The entity's voice boomed, now unrecognizable, a mocking growl, a dark echo of the Jake she loved. The forest roared in agreement, branches snapping as the ground shook beneath her feet. Vines coiled around her ankles, pulling her down into the earth that seemed ravenous, hungry for her essence. "No!" she gasped, tearing away from the grip of the forest. But the shadows whispered sweetly, "Join us, be with him forever." More cries erupted from the trees, filling her mind with images of lost souls, their faces dissolving into the abyss. They reached for her, fingers stretched, mouths gaping, their agony palpable. Her breath came in shallow bursts as the forest closed in, a living entity intent on swallowing her whole. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. "You're not him, you're not real." As if responding to her claim, the world erupted into chaos. The shadows warped around her, howling, cracking like thunder, swirling like a storm. A surge of power emanated from the center of darkness, and Emily stumbled back, terror striking like a knife to her heart. In that moment of vulnerability, the figure of Jake lunged towards her, arms outstretched, mouth twisted into a smile that was all wrong. "Emily! Come to me!" he roared, and the forest itself trembled. With a final gasp, she turned and ran, branches clawing at her, desperate to retain her in their depths. She dashed through the tangled maze, heart pounding, bursting with terror and an urgent need to escape. Every scream behind her deepened the shadows and filled the air with regret. As she stumbled into a clearing, a flicker of moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating a weathered stone altar hidden beneath twisted roots. A disturbing aura radiated from it, pulling at her like a siren song. She looked back at the thundering darkness, then at the altar. The choice was before her, the weight of a decision that would shape everything. She could either leap back into the depths of the darkness with her child, or risk everything and step closer to the unknown. Would the altar give her the power to save Jake, or would it trap her forever? As she took a step toward the stone, a whisper echoed through the wind, "Embrace the darkness, or lose him for good." With dread gripping her chest, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The air grew thick and oily as Emily edged closer to the altar. Each step felt like walking on glass, sharp and treacherous. The shadows behind her writhed, hungry for her to falter. Panic clawed at her throat as the ground beneath her trembled, eager to swallow her whole. Her heart drummed a furious beat. Could she really trust this ancient stone? A low murmur pulsed from it, words coiling around her like tendrils. "Power, salvation, darkness, show me!" she shouted, clutching her baby tighter, feeling the weight of the world pressing against her chest. If the altar could bring Jake back, she was willing to risk everything. But as she reached out, fingers grazing the cool stone, a chill raced up her arm like ice. Visions erupted around her. The clearing shifted, the trees twisting into grotesque shapes that animated the past, flashes of laughter, Jake cradling their newborn, sunsets painted with warmth. Then, a dark shift, the laughter transformed into cries, screams twisting into a cacophony that ripped through her heart. "Choose!" The shadows howled, voices overlapping, lost souls twisted in anguish. They swirled before her, desperate for release, each one a face she'd never known, begging her for salvation. "Emily!" Jake's voice cut through the noise, sharp and clear but tainted with urgency. "Help me! Don't let them take you!" Her mind reeled. Was he real, or just another puppet of the forest? What should I do? The words slipped from her lips, dramatic and desperate. "You're not him, I can't take that chance." The shadowy figure flickered, morphing, revealing more of Jake's familiar features, his eyes hollow yet pleading, glistening with an unnatural light. "You have to be brave. Trust what you feel. I'm right here," he urged, stretching his arms toward her, pulling her into the abyss. With every ounce of strength, Emily shook her head. "No!" she yelled back, heart racing. She wanted to believe, wanted to surrender, but the forest stirred in response, a beast awakening from its slumber. Branches snapped as if signaling an ancient rage, ready to unleash their fury. The ground shivered, and roots shot up, coiling around her legs. She could feel the forest pulling her apart, inch by agonizing inch. "Don't lose him!" the voices wailed, a requiem echoing in the void. Grappling with the anguish surging within her, she tore her gaze from the altar and the twisted facade of Jake. She glanced back toward the darkness where shadows wailed in dismay, their cries piercing her soul. "No!" The word bolted from her lips like a gunshot, a stark rejection of an impossible choice. In that moment, the altar erupted with a blinding light, chasing shadows back with terrifying speed. The forest groaned, a primal roar echoing through the trees. Emily shielded her eyes, feeling the power radiate from the stone like a beacon. As she steadied herself, she saw a series of runes taking shape, glowing like embers. Perhaps, she realized, it held more than simple sacrifices. A chance for truth, for redemption. Maybe it was a weapon against the very darkness she feared. Heart pounding, she took a deep breath, filling her lungs with courage. She felt the whispers grow faint, but urgency buzzed like electricity at her fingertips. "Jake!" But just as she prepared to delve deeper, the forest screamed one last time, a wave of despair crashing over her, drowning her resolve. Shadows clawed at the edges of her sight, reality warping with each passing second. And then, behind the veil of darkness, a flicker of movement, the choir of tormented souls surged, creating a storm of chaos. One shadow, distinct from the rest, broke free and lunged at her with an insatiable hunger, a desperate grasp for what it once lost. Emily's blood ran cold, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. What would she do? Embrace the unknown power of the altar, or turn back to the shadows that promised to consume her? As the shadow barreled toward her, she braced herself, feeling the weight of life and death collide in that instant. In the depths of her soul, she could finally sense it, the tear between love and survival. And time was ticking away. The shadow surged, a dark wave of horror breaking against her. Emily's instincts screamed at her to run, to flee from the encroaching nightmare. But the roots tightened around her legs as if the forest itself had made its choice to claim her as one of its own. "No!" she cried, feeling her heart race. She peered into the shadows, searching for a way out, a flicker of light, anything to hold on to. The figure lunged closer, its form shifting grotesquely, a nightmare given life. It was neither Jake nor any familiar face, it was an amalgam of loss and despair. "Help me!" the shadow shrieked, its voice a chilling mimicry of her husband. The sound scratched at her ears, a chilling reminder of everything she had lost. It was a call for salvation and a warning wrapped into one. Her pulse pounded in her temples. She had to make a choice. The altar pulsed with energy, the glowing runes beckoning her with their promise. She glanced again at the shadow, its eyes, sunken and hollow, held a promise of escape. But at what cost? Instinct kicked in. Where there was darkness, there had to be light. Emily tightened her grip around her baby, feeling the warmth radiating from the child. "I won't lose you to this," she shouted defiantly, unwilling to relinquish her resolve. Summoning the last reserves of her strength, Emily inhaled deeply and reached out to the altar with fierce determination. As her fingertips brushed its surface, it radiated warmth, dispersing the cold that enveloped the clearing. She felt an electric jolt surge through her. She was no longer just a bystander. She was connected. The altar responded. A surge of energy erupted, vibrant and chaotic. The forest trembled, dark roots recoiling as a blinding light shot forth, illuminating the clearing in golden tones, casting the shadow into stark relief. "No!" it howled, now a writhing mass of frustration and fury. "You can't escape." Emily felt her resolve strengthen. "I choose life," she declared. The runes flared, and the sickly tendrils of darkness began to retreat. The shadows hissed, bubblegum pink and corrosive, flickering in the wake of the light. They clawed and screamed, twisting, losing form as if being sucked back into the void. But the shadow of Jake remained, tethered to her. She could see the flicker of hope still in his hollowed eyes. "Emily! You have to shut up!" she shouted, cutting him off. "You're not him!" In that moment, she let go of the pain, allowing the tears to fall. Emotions flooded her, not just the love she felt for Jake but the acceptance of his death. She embraced the truth, he was gone, and she couldn't feed the shadows any longer. Just as the shadows began to dissolve, a piercing shriek erupted from the abyss. The light around the altar flickered, dimming as the darker forces fought back with a primal rage. The ground shook violently, a terrible growl echoing through the trees. "Stay!" Panic shot through her as the shadows twisted, thrashing wildly. Emily's heart raced, she could feel the entire forest awakening. Branches snapped angrily, drawing closer as if ready to unleash vengeance. "No!" she gasped as the ground beneath her began to crack. The earth erupted, shards of soil flying into the air, swallowing the glowing runes, threatening to drag her into the very depths of despair she sought to escape. With every ounce of courage, she squeezed her eyes shut and pushed against the dark pull that sought to consume her. This isn't the end. Just then, a blinding flash erupted from the altar, illuminating the clearing one last time. Emily felt the ground shift beneath her, a rush of wind sweeping around her, urging her toward freedom. As she opened her eyes, the shadow faltered and withdrew, and she felt the comforting grip of released tension in her grasp. But as she prepared to step away, an eerie laugh echoed through the now empty clearing, chilling her blood. "Not yet, not yet!" the voice taunted, slithering back into the shadows. Emily staggered, heart pounding with fear, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She hesitated, unsure of what lay before her next. What would emerge from the darkness now? Was liberation in sight, or would the cursed forest reveal its final secret, dragging her deeper into its malevolent heart? Emily's breath quickened, each exhale a desperate plea for clarity amidst the chaos. The remnants of the shadows loomed like angry specters. The last echoes of laughter faded into the depths, sending a chill down her spine. Was it taunting her, or was it a warning? The ground shook again, and Emily stumbled backwards, instinctively protecting her baby. The air thickened with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, something familiar. She could feel it weighing heavily on her, the grief, the loss of clarity, and the lurking dread that threatened to swallow her whole. Her instincts screamed at her to run. But where? The forest, once inviting, morphed into an oppressive maze, trees twisting overhead, closing in on her like a prison. The altar stood tall, remnants of its power still flickering, but Emily felt the darkness around it pulse with rage, as if aware that its grip was weakening. "Stay close," she whispered to her child, clutching the blanket tightly. They had to escape this place. But the longer she waited, the more the shadows shifted and whispered, crawling nearer. Their icy tendrils brushed against her ankles like skeletal fingers, coaxing her towards despair. Just then, a small movement caught her eye. From between the trees, a figure emerged, a woman, cloaked in shadows, the outline barely visible but eerily familiar. Emily squinted, recognizing the sorrow etched on the woman's face. "Help me please," the figure beckoned softly, trembling but fierce. It was a reflection of her own pain, an embodiment of the fears she fought against. The instinct to comfort battled against a rising terror. What if this was another deception? "Who are you?" Emily's voice trembled, caught between hope and dread. "I am the lost," the woman replied, her voice a haunting melody of despair. "I linger, trapped in this forest, eternally searching for release." "Like you." Emily felt the roots beneath her tighten, the forest responding to her wavering resolve. She shook her head, refusing to be drawn in. "I am not lost, I have a choice." The woman's gaze shifted, sorrow transitioning into understanding. "Choices can be illusions, Emily. This place feeds on them. You think you can escape? The darkness has already marked you." A thick fog began to roll in, swirling around them, cloaking the clearing in an unsettling embrace. Visions flitted through Emily's mind, flashes of her life with Jake, moments of joy now tainted with sorrow. It felt as if the ground beneath her was pulling memories from her heart, exposing her raw and unhealed wounds. "No! I won't let it take my memories," she screamed, clutching her baby tightly. The primal urge to shield her realized deeper fears, all the time she hadn't fought for herself, the moments she let darkness creep in. The woman stepped closer, but the shadows howled, snapping around her, trying to reclaim their lost prey. "Fight, Emily. You have the power. You must harness it." As the shadows lunged, a surge of energy erupted from her heart. The light from the altar blazed bright, illuminating the clearing even against the thickening fog. Memories flickered behind her eyes, forming a protective barrier, blurring the figure who had once promised relief. "No!" the woman shrieked, but Emily's resolve hardened. She focused on every beautiful memory, building a wall against despair, refusing to let the shadows claim her mind. Suddenly, the earth trembled violently. "You dare defy me?" the voice boomed, echoing around the glade. A crack rippled through the ground again, and the darkness recoiled, but it wasn't done yet. With desperation clawing at her chest, Emily realized the forest was alive with rage, refusing to succumb to her light. Each heartbeat echoed louder. She took a step forward, ready to confront whatever came next, ready to fight for her survival. "I won't be a puppet to your fear." But as the darkness hissed and writhed, throwing tendrils at her once more, another chilling laughter echoed, crawling back into the crevices of her mind. "What a delicious choice you've made!" The shadows lunged again, and Emily braced herself for the onslaught. Could she truly wrestle free from the grip of the cursed place, or was this just the beginning of something far more sinister? The forest held its breath. What awaited her within its darkened heart? Would she uncover the truth before it was too late? Emily's heart raced as the shadows lunged forward. The ground beneath her feet seemed alive, writhing and undulating like a beast awakened from a long slumber. She glanced down at her baby, the innocent life she was protectively cradling. That was her anchor, one glimmer of hope in the unending darkness. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered fiercely. The shadows hesitated only for a moment, recoiling at the light that spilled from her memories, but it was just enough for Emily to take a step back. The altar gleamed behind her, a beacon in this nightmare. Yet the laughter echoed again, mocking, reverberating through the trees. "You think you can shield yourself?" it sneered. "You are already one of us." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. This was no ordinary fight, this was a battle for her very soul. With every flicker of light she generated, the darkness writhed with new fury. Tendrils, sharp and cold, sliced through the air, dancing around her in an intricate, twisted ballet. In a desperate rush, Emily pulled even deeper into her core of light, thinking of Jake's warm embrace, their laughter upon a sunlit hill, their tiny apartment filled with hope. "You cannot have us!" she screamed at the shadows, her voice igniting with an unfamiliar strength. "I will not lose my family." But the shadows slowed, mocking her vulnerability. "Family, that word means nothing here." With a sharp crack, the earth split open, revealing a chasm that beckoned her with dark promises. Visions of her life flickered like a broken film reel, moments of both bliss and bruising pain intertwined. Suddenly a new howl entered the fray, a mournful cry. Emily turned sharply. It was the lost woman again, but now she was entangled in shadows, her eyes wide with terror. "Run, Emily! Before it's too late!" Before Emily could react, the ground shifted beneath her feet. The altar blazed, sending beams of light slicing through the darkness, illuminating the figures trapped within the trees, the lost souls, their faces twisted with agony. "Leave this place! It's a trap!" they cried out in unison, their voices layered like an ominous symphony. Determined, Emily decided she wouldn't be rooted by fear any longer. She took a deep breath, summoning all her strength. The shadows shrieked, their howls rising to a fever pitch, almost feeding off her fear as they coiled tighter around her. With a powerful surge, she flung herself toward the altar, the source of her strength. As she reached out, the darkness screamed, echoing an incomprehensible rage that threatened to drown her consciousness. "Your light will fade!" it roared, and the shadows exploded into a tempest, crashing over her like a tidal wave. Emily fell. Darkness enveloped her, smothering her thoughts, swallowing her screaming heart. She brought the blanket closer, fear clawing at her because the world around her began to spin, folding in on itself. Then, just as she thought she would be lost forever, she heard the soft, familiar cooing of her baby. The sound cut through the chaos like a knife, reviving her spirit, reminding her of the love worth fighting for. "I'm coming, baby," she shouted, pulling herself back. She clenched her fists, and with each breath, she recalled every ounce of joy, love, and hope she possessed. As the darkness closed in on all sides, she lit up her memories fiercely. The shadows shrank back, hissing in rejection. But just then, another laugh split through the fog. "Ah, but you forget, Emily. Your journey is just beginning." With a final blast of light, she pushed forward. She could see a path, one that twisted and turned but felt more significant than any single tree or shadow. What lay at its end? Would it guide her to safety, or deeper into despair? Her path lay open before her, and she stumbled toward it, every fiber of her being screaming for survival, determined not to let the darkness win this time. But as she raced ahead, a new coldness gripped her heart. What dream would she have to chase next? Could she truly escape the grips of the woods, or would the darkness find a way to follow? Emily's feet pounded against the uneven ground, each step echoed with the pulse of her heart. The path twisted like a snake, curling into the darker recesses of the forest, where the trees loomed overhead like silent sentinels watching, waiting. Shadows lurked at the corners of her vision, slithering just beyond her sight, and she could feel their cold breath on her neck. "Stay close to me," she whispered to the baby, wrapping her arms tighter around the fragile bundle. The cooing echoed sweetly in the oppressive silence, a fragile melody amidst the growing dread. A chill sliced through the air, leaving goosebumps prickling down her arms. "You cannot escape," a voice hissed from somewhere deep within the shadows. A ripple of terror coursed through her veins. With each step, the figures of the lost souls lingered at the edges of her thoughts, their faces contorted in silent anguish, pleading for release. "I want to be like you," she screamed, rage building as she thrust her determined light forward, creating a shield against the encroaching night. In response, the shadows recoiled, their forms writhing and undulating along the ground. But behind her, the laughter returned, chilling her bones. "Foolish girl! What makes you think this light can save you? You're tethered to this place now." They seemed to taunt her, the very air shimmering with dark defiance. Breath quickening, Emily's mind raced. What if it was true? What if the shadows could claim her, warp her, and drag her into their infinite void? She thought of Jake, of their dreams, of holding her baby under the sun, of laughter echoing through their lives. "I will not let you take my family." The words ripped from her throat, raw and fierce. She sprinted ahead, focusing on the path, the altar still calling her. Every instinct screamed for her to keep moving. The light she summoned flickered and danced, a beacon in the choking dark. She turned around quickly, expecting to see the shadows lunging for her, but was met with an eerie stillness. Then, out of the silence, the lost woman emerged again, trapped in the shadows yet somehow more corporeal. "The only way out is through," she gasped, her voice trembling. "You must confront it. Your darkness." Emily's breath caught, an icy dread settling in her bones. What darkness? The dying light of hope? The memories she buried deep? Okay, she whispered, steeling herself. She had to face what had brought her to this place. The path narrowed ahead, dark and winding, and she felt the pull of the chasm behind her. With grim resolve, she forged onward. As she plunged deeper, the shadows swirled around her, more forceful now, almost possessive. Whispers slithered into her ears, horrid truths wrapped in silky tones. "You brought him here, he will suffer," they hissed. "No!" Emily cried, the sound tearing through her. "No! I didn't mean I couldn't." Tears stung her eyes, blurring her vision as the facade of her strength began to crack. Then, without warning, an unearthly roar erupted from the shadows, drowning her protests. An immense shadow, more tangible and grotesque than before, surged toward her, the very embodiment of her fears. Emily stumbled back, her heart pounding wildly as she stood at the precipice of confrontation. The monstrous figure loomed, eyes burning with fury. But deeper within, she could feel another presence, buried beneath layers of despair. Face it, Emily. The lost woman shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Only then can you reclaim what was lost. With one final surge of courage, Emily squared her shoulders, staring down the darkness that churned before her. I won't be afraid any longer, she whispered fiercely. But as she stood at the edge of what could be her reckoning, a piercing scream echoed through the forest, one that tore the thin veil of her resolve. It was a call for help, a howl that spoke not only of terror but of desperation, and it was a sound she recognized all too well. Jake, her heart plummeted into the depths of her chest, the shadows shifting violently, their laughter mingling with the cries of her family. Could she truly summon the light to confront the darkness inside her? Or had she already lost them all? The question lingered heavy in the night, as the shadows closed in, hungry for her response. Emily stood at the edge of the abyss, heart thundering like a war drum, every fiber in her being screaming for survival. Shadows encircled her, writhing in a malevolent dance, feeding on her fears, her doubts. The monstrous figure loomed ahead, a manifestation of everything she wanted to forget: her insecurities, her failures, all wrapped up in the darkness of Maplewood. Jake! She cried, feeling the desperate ache of longing wrap around her heart like of ice. Please, just hold on. The echo of his name hung in the air, mingling with the whispers that dripped with malice, telling her she was powerless, that she was lost. It was a symphony of despair that threatened to drown her. With every heartbeat, the shadow lunged closer, a grotesque parody of Jake now filled with dark contempt. Each twist and turn of its face reminded her of the love she cherished, twisted grotesquely into something unrecognizable. You will never escape me, it jeered, voice echoing in haunting imitation. The horror settled in, a tight knot in her chest. Escape meant confronting the very darkness that had pulled them to this cursed land. She grappled with the truth, and suddenly, she grasped it fiercely. No more running. No more hiding. I'm not afraid of you. The words spilled out, dripping with newfound resolve. You only exist because I let fear take root. With each syllable, she felt the warmth of her baby resting against her chest, a reminder, a lifeline, a spark of light. The forest, once alive with chaotic whispers, drew back momentarily. With a sudden fierce clarity, Emily drew her thoughts inward, focusing on the love she had, the moments shared with Jake, the laughter, the tender glances, the safety of their home. The altar shone brightly behind her, its warmth beckoning her to focus even deeper. You are not my husband, she shouted at the shadows, the words vibrating through the very air, fueled by pain and determination. You've taken enough. The ground trembled beneath her, shadows flickering like candle flames caught in a storm. Slowly, she took a step forward, heart steadying, signaling a silent promise to herself and the world around her: she was done being a hostage to this darkness. My family is my strength, she declared, feeling the roots release their grip, the darkness pulling back. Suddenly, time shifted, and the shadows wailed in protest, warping around her as if the very atmosphere rejected her defiance. The light from the altar surged, weaving around her, wrapping her in a cocoon of strength. You do not control me. With a fierce cry, Emily moved forward, right into the heart of darkness. I choose love over fear. The words surged forth like a sun breaking through a stormy sky, igniting the shadows into a blinding chaos. In the chaos, she felt Jake's presence, flickers of warmth surfacing in the gloom, the soft sound of their baby's gentle coo hanging in the air. Jake! I can feel you. And just like that, a shift occurred. The darkness swirled and collapsed, revealing glimpses of warmth behind the monstrous facade. The real Jake fought to break free, his essence shimmering against the dark tide. He rasped, his form flickering like a flame. With renewed hope, she surged forward, the blinding light engulfing her as she grappled with the tendrils of shadow, reaching for him. I'm here. Together, we can fight this. With a final scream that shook the very roots of the forest, Emily burst through the last barrier of darkness, light exploding outward, dissolving the malevolent shadow into wisps of nothingness. She felt a surge of victory ripple through her, a powerful ache of love swelling in her chest. The shadows writhed and hissed before evaporating into the chill of the night, their cries fading, swallowed by the endless darkness. Breathing heavily, she stood before the altar where the last flickers of hope burned brightly. "We're free," she whispered, looking down at her baby, then her eyes drawn to the shadows retreating into the woods, forever banished. Jake's familiar form stood next to her, finally solid and real, a warmth creeping back into his presence. "I thought I lost you," he murmured, a soft smile breaking through fear's remnants. "You almost did," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes, relief washing over her like summer rain after a long drought. They embraced, the bond rekindling, grounding them both. The baby cooed softly against her, a pure testament to their love. "We need to leave," Jake said, urgency creeping into his voice. Emily nodded, turning toward the path leading out of that sinister place. Together, they walked, hand in hand, heart to heart, heading toward the light. As they stepped away from the forest, the trees whispered low a final warning of what waited beyond their shores, yet they moved forward, liberated, stronger than ever, carrying the light of love in their hearts. And Maplewood, once a name wrapped in shadow, became merely a memory fading, forever altered, a reminder of what lay lurking in the depths but also of the strength of love that could conquer all. The woods would remain, but they had faced its horrors and emerged victorious. Now, it was time to live without fear. So, what's next? You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help others find us. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. Did it surprise you? And don't wait for even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story ends. Come on, true fans, show your support.